Well, first of all, just briefly, the report looked at the EU settlement scheme, which is the scheme that EU citizens in the UK have to apply for if they want to stay post-Brexit. And the main finding is that the majority of people do not think it's a secure status. They have great reservations about it. 90% of people want physical proof, which the status doesn't currently provide. It also raises a lot of questions, though, about possible discrimination already happening, and also about a complete sense of or loss of sense of belonging amongst many EU citizens in the UK. Unfortunately, I think the UK government really is just putting its head in the sand, and that's a real tragedy because there can only be problems if the system isn't changed. So I hope still that the Lord's Amendment will have some impact. Just continuing to say, oh, we don't agree with this, just simply isn't enough. I think the best case scenario is two things. A, to provide physical proof of status that will give EU citizens much more security and trust in the status as well. And then to change to a declaratory system that does away with the finite deadline and therefore will prevent a lot of EU citizens becoming unlawful. The comparison is tricky in the sense that the Windrush scandal obviously has a very specific context, and we must never forget that. There is a racist element, I think, in that scandal as well, and nobody is trying to talk that away. They're very specific circumstances of the people who were so tragically affected by that scandal. However, the underlying problem is the same, the question of retroactive changes to status or promises being broken. That is why the House of Commons also concluded that there is a real risk of a repeat of a Windrush type scandal if the EU settlement scheme continues as it's currently set up. In terms of the process of the EU settlement scheme, one of the things the report I've done shows is that the Home Office can make the process work for a good number of people, those who are in employment and those who have good records. So it would be wrong to make a blanket criticism about the system, but the vulnerable people, those who do not even know that they have to apply, they are at real risk of being unlawful at some point in the future, and then normal immigration rules would apply, and then we are looking at a new Windrush scandal. That's just a straight out lie. First of all, we only have a settlement scheme because the UK pushed so much to reduce citizens' rights that we had to get to this point. They're trying to play people against people, which is what the UK government has been trying to do from day one. They have no other argument, so they're just looking to find someone to blame. I'm not impressed with the EU on many issues either, but the bottom line remains the same. The settlement scheme is not generous. It robs people of rights, and so to go around and say, you know, it's better or in any way generous is very hypocritical. Some people are definitely being given the wrong status. There can be no doubt about this. We know this because some stories have been in the press about this. Quite famous people, actually. So there have certainly been issues. The fact that so many people get pre-settled status, even if correctly, is a serious concern because they will all have to effectively reapply for full status once they have reached the eligibility criteria. Normally, that's just the number of years in the UK. So effectively, all of these, at the moment 900,000 people, are individual cliff edges. So if anyone tells you today that the system is a success, we have to reject that very strongly because we will not be able to know that until the point that everyone has full settled status, and that will take years still. So that really is a grave concern, not least because changes might well be made. I'm not saying there are any indications for that, but they could be made. So is settled status in 5 years' time the same as now? We don't know. So I'm very concerned about this.